YouTube, what is good? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about my collaboration with Polaroid and my first gallery show ever. This is a pretty big occasion for me. I've never done anything like this, and I was fortunate enough to be able to collab with Polaroid on a project where I would not only display my work, but then also give a talk and describe, the inner workings of the project, how it all came together, my thinking, my philosophy around it. So this was a pretty big moment for me. I was pretty happy to have had the opportunity. So let's start at the beginning. I actually was reached out to by Polaroid, and they kind of explained this whole idea they had for their marketing, and they wanted to do something called Real Life is Not Black and White, which basically would involve me using a lot of this black and white emulsion from them, the new stuff, the really kind of improved quality one. And I would take that and do some sort of a documentary project of my choosing. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and the turnaround was going to be pretty quick. So the Dominican Day Parade was coming up, and you guys know I'm Dominican, and I typically go and photograph that in my style. So I decided, you know what, let's go to the parade in Manhattan. And instead of using the typical equipment that I usually use, which is, a medium format camera and a 35 millimeter camera, I decided to forgo the 35 millimeter camera and bring the Polaroid I-2 with a bunch of the black and white film. And they provided me a bunch of film, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So I went to the parade. It was a great parade. It was a lot of fun. And I did what I did the year before, which is I stuck to the side streets before the parade. So the actual parade itself, I didn't really document, but I documented the areas where the performers and the participants of the parade, where they get ready. So they come to the parade location a couple hours early, and then they park in these side streets and they put their outfits on. They're like pre-gaming, hanging out, some drinking, some partying, that kind of thing. And that's exactly what I love, because that's where you get the real emotion, kind of the real street style activity. It's not just a straight up performance like it is during the parade. So I did that, and I shot a bunch with the I-2. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So the idea was, let's start there, let's shoot a ton, and let's see if kind of some themes come out of there to generate some ideas. And, I got some photos that I like, some that I didn't, but I made some relationships, which ultimately were the most valuable part of that experience. And specifically, I made relationships with specific performers. These performers are called Los Lechones. It's a Dominican thing from the city of Santiago in Dominican Republic. And that's the city that my parents are from. That's the city that I visited earlier this year when I showed you some of those photos of the Dominican Republic. So it's a very kind of special thing to me, and I really want to dive into that a bit more. So I made these contacts, and I basically told these guys, hey, I really want to photograph you. Let's set up some time to meet. Maybe we'll hop in the studio. Maybe I'll come meet you at another live event. And in that relationship, I would try to kind of carve out a bit of a narrative with regards to, what these guys are doing, who they are. And, of course, shoot it all on the Polaroid black and white film. So the first thing we did was actually hop in the studio, and this was a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of studio work nowadays, but for this, I decided to get 3 of the performers, bring them to the studio, and my goal in the studio was to capture kind of the realistic fantasy aspect of this culture, of this kind of performance. So I use very contrasty light from one angle typically, and my idea here was to create a kind of an environment of mystery, of intrigue, and then also capture the motion and have the motion play a big role in kind of the mystique of the imagery itself. I didn't want to freeze these characters performing because there wasn't anything specific to the freezing that really made me interested. But I wanted to actually do the opposite, which was blur a lot of the movement. And to me, that would create a bit more of that mystery, a bit more of that kind of dynamic, kind of like pagan kind of thing, really, combine their physical aesthetic, which is looking like demons of some sort, with their movement and really make you wonder, like, what's going on here? So we did a lot of that, and I'm actually really happy with the work that I got from there. Shooting on Polaroid was great because I could see my results, but Polaroid does develop slower than something like Instax, so I would basically shoot in spurts. I would shoot maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 images, maybe a whole pack, in whatever style I'm trying to achieve. And then I would take a break, put all those images aside, and then once they were viewable, once they developed enough where I could see what was going on, then I would kind of make adjustments from there in terms of the shutter speed, or maybe change some lighting, or, any other adjustment that I can think of. But that was really rewarding because in the moment, I got to see what I was doing, and it made the collaboration a bit more easy. It made it less daunting. When you shoot film normally, you can't see anything. So you're shooting, and that kind of affects how you interact with your subject in terms of what you're telling them to do and the feedback. And they can't see anything, so they kind of have to imagine the things you're saying. So seeing it live was fantastic. Anybody who shoots in the studio a lot, I recommend you shoot Polaroid or Instax in addition to whatever format you're using, especially if you don't have a digital camera. That way you can kind of see a little bit of what you're doing and let that help you in your process. So we did the studio shots, and I really loved how they turned out. I still wanted a realistic kind of street photography thing as well. So I decided to go attend another parade that they had in New Jersey. And there's a lot of Dominicans in New Jersey, so New Jersey has its own smaller but still very kind of lively and deep parade. So I went to that, and that was a lot of fun as well. And this time, this parade, because it's in a smaller location and less of a, it's not the big city like New York City, you can do whatever you want. You can hop in and you can walk in the streets, and there's no barricades. And for a photographer, it's the dream, because you can jump in there and really immerse yourself and not have to worry about police and rules and any of that stuff. So I got there early, and I wanted to document these guys as they were getting ready for this event, as they're kind of getting in the mindset of the performer mindset, and then of course during the performance itself. So we did that, and I was really happy with some of the shots I got here. I got to capture more of the human element of the performers. In the studio, we captured the mystique, the kind of lore, maybe the pagan aspect of it. On the streets is the complete opposite. It's the realistic aspect. It's the lifelike aspect. It's the people, the humans. And that distinction kind of was one of the central themes in this project. It's kind of my interpretation of what I remember as a kid when I saw these performers. They scared the crap out of me, honestly, because of the big masks and the whips and all that stuff. I wanted to take that memory and juxtapose it with the reality, which is, these are regular people like you and I, a lot of young men doing this out of the love for their culture, as opposed to, any monetary gains or anything like that. So it's an interesting progression from, my early childhood memories to my current interest as an adult. Those two things come together in a very interesting way, but I thought it was worthwhile kind of showcasing that distinction. All right, so all the photography was done. I was now culling my images, going through basically 100 Polaroids and picking out kind of my top 15 and then scanning them, which is a whole nother thing. But ultimately, we kind of nailed it down into top 15 images, and I'll show you some right here. These are actually framed, and I have them in this kind of arrangement because I think it's beautiful to see the images in a progression. Polaroid images are small, so of course they can speak loudly individually, but when you put them together, now you start to edit and you start to create kind of a narrative and an assembly of images. So I have this one right here, which focuses more on the actual mystical character element of it. It's more the studio stuff, although there is one street shot there. And then I kind of have the exact opposite in this other one here. And this is a bit heavy, so I'm trying to be gentle. But in this other one here, now we're showcasing more of the street aspect of it, still focusing on the human element and also some of the details that you would notice when you're out there on the streets. And I really love this top shot right here. This is actually not of the Lechones at all, but it's of one of the sound systems that's at the parade. And the black border of the Polaroid just added so much amazing kind of visual dynamism, let's say, to the image, because you got the black border and then there's some really strong blacks in the image itself. So it just contrasts very nicely and kind of matches very well. So I really love how these look framed like this, and it really kind of helps me tell the story to some degree. So let's go to the actual day of the event. I showed up in the morning, and that morning I met up with some of the Brooklyn film camera team. That's where the event was going to be hosted, and they were the ones kind of organizing stuff on the ground. So I met up with them, and we actually did a workshop for some potential kind of suitors of the Polaroid system. Polaroid brought in a couple vendors and a couple partners that they wanted to showcase the camera to, and my work was the way to showcase that. And we actually walked around the streets as well and did some of the photography, and they got to mess with the cameras. It was a lot of fun, honestly. I've never done anything like that, so that was cool. The next thing we did, there was a big break in the middle of the day, so I went out and did some stuff in the city. But then at night was the big event. That was the big talk. So it was an open invite. I think there were maybe like 40 people there or something like that. And yeah, they came to watch me speak about my project and to learn more about me in general as a photographer, but also specifically to the project. And Polaroid printed 4 of these images big. So you can see right here, these basically look like giant Polaroids, which is pretty weird to look at initially, just because, it's like an enormous Polaroid. But when you stop and take a second, then you're like, wow, that's really cool. It's literally a giant Polaroid. And I scanned these images as super high-res TIFF. I think it was like 2400 DPI. I was really trying to maximize the detail. And I went through a couple iterations of how I scanned the images to eliminate all Newton rings, but then still preserve as much sharpness as possible. And I think I got really good results. So it was amazing to see these in person and say, wow, my efforts that I spent all that time on paid off in these amazing images. So we did that. And yeah, that was my first time showing any work in a public setting like that. I show a lot of my work on YouTube, on Instagram, and all that stuff. But I also print a lot, and nobody gets to see those prints aside from people that come, to my house or something and see it in person. So being able to showcase that was fantastic. And I'll admit to you, I was a bit kind of self-conscious and worried about that because the I-2 is a great camera, but it's not the main tool that I use to do my photography at all. I shoot on the Yashica 124G, my medium format 6x6, and on 35 millimeter film as well. And those tools, I create the work that I envision in my head in the moment on the street, reactionary style. And I get results that I'm really proud of that I really want to showcase one day in big prints in a gallery setting. The I-2 is not that tool. The I-2 is a new tool for me. I started shooting the I-2 maybe a year and a half ago, maybe less. So really putting a lot of effort into creating work with that and then showcasing it meant that I'm kind of exposing myself to something new generally, and then showcasing that, having that represent me as opposed to my work that I typically do. So I was a bit worried about that, and I kind of, thought a lot about that and really got in my head about it. Ultimately, I did seek some help. So I talked to Wesley, who you guys might know. I hired him for his consulting services. So, reach out to him if you're looking for a mentor or some consulting advice on photography. And he helped me really think about my images and help reinforce the ideas that I had about which ones were quality, which ones weren't, and help me get some confidence in saying, okay, I really like what I got here. Let's put it out. It's time to really showcase this stuff. So working with Polaroid, we kind of aligned on certain images. They had the ones they really preferred that match kind of their goals as a marketing effort. And I, of course, have my own as the artist. So, bridging that gap was a bit of a challenge. I think it's the classic thing between the corporate world versus the art world and having that mesh. But we figured it out and very happy with the results. I do want to print some of these other images, my favorite images, especially from the studio. Print those big because I think they're going to look amazing. So anyways, back to the event. I did my talk. There's a recording of the talk floating around somewhere, but I haven't been able to get my hands on it, so I can't show it to you here. So the talk was great. It was just really heartwarming to have people come and just, look at my work. You get positive feedback in real time. And, I guess, technically I'm an artist like everybody else out there, but it's hard for me to consider myself an artist just because I don't have that formal art background. I didn't study art. I never pursued art as like a thing when I was younger. And now photography, over the last 5 years or so has kind of taken over my creative sensibilities, and it is art. The identity piece is almost irrelevant. It's about creating and doing what you want to do. The labels don't matter, but when you're putting your work out there and when you're marketing yourself, there's a bit of pressure to really kind of harness that artist energy and really, lead with that. And for me, that's a bit of a challenge. So I think that was the other thing I was struggling with was, presenting myself as an artist and talking like an artist typically would talk. And it's just not what I do. So, I had to kind of flex that a little bit. And I think we did well, but, it's a process. It's an evolution. So in general, yeah, very happy to have done this event. This really kind of lit a spark inside of me in terms of wanting to put my work out there more. I have stuff that I really want to show, but I also have a story and a narrative that I really want to fulfill. And I don't think I have that narrative fulfilled yet in terms of the amount of images, the types of images. So I'm not going to rush it. I'm going to take my time, but maybe in the meantime, I'll put some other stuff out, like that zine about Juve that I mentioned. I think I got a complete kind of concise body of work there that I can put out visually and have people enjoy. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, just comment down below. Let me know what you think. And if you want to see high res scans of this, check the Tumblr link down below. That's where I kind of post a lot of my work at random times. So you can really see the images there in really high quality on a big computer screen. So as always, thanks for the support. And I really want to extra thank my viewers here because your support is what allows social media to grow. And this is what brands see when they want to collaborate with people. They see numbers, they see reach and all that stuff. So without your support, none of this would have ever happened. So I really want to thank you all for that. And yeah, to the next video. I'm out.